Welcome to the church, volume 2. Exclusive 213. Got my nephew Nate Dogg in the house. Nate Dogg, holla at him, where you at?
Riding in my car.
Common mistakes in strength training. First of all, identifying what the goal is in strength training is pretty important. To increase maximal strength, top 1 RM strength, or maybe it be strength capacity, 5 rep max strength, 10 rep max strength, and that's about it in terms of rep ranges of where I want to get stronger. Then what are the things that are going to help me get to those places and benefit that, and then what are the things that are kind of leeching on and subtracting the value from my acquired goal of getting strong. First of all, I think technique and form is the highest or the first brick on the wall. Now let's take 3 different athletes, for example, athletes for lack of a better term. You've got a beginner athlete, an intermediate athlete, and an elite or advanced level athlete. And the beginner might be somebody 0 to 2 years experience in the gym. Now their training is going to look a lot different rather than the advanced kind of micro detailed leveled athlete. The beginner, we're going to look at not a whole heap of variation, but really nailing the fundamentals of the basic compound movements, and we're going to do them regularly, and we're going to do them within rep ranges and intensities / loads of which is most safe and manageable to continuously move forward, progressive overload, but not something that's going to exert a whole amount of safety issues if really explored or overdone. Support technique on form within movements is not understanding the movements in totality. I think first of all, we're looking for a great range of motion. I think there's just that misconception / a little bit of, I would say, gray area where people may be afraid to go to certain depths of range of motion for knee health, patella health, ligaments and things like that. It has been found to be a fallacy. It would just come down to how well you are controlling the load, at what type of speeds are you under those loads, at which points are you pushing through power and positions, and just balance and effectiveness of the movement. But if you had somebody who had no issues in full range of motion and you had them on a well-tailored training program, you would have no issues whatsoever ever. So that is almost like a little bit person specific, but full range of motion is always going to be the desired outcome from a movement first and foremost, and recruit as much musculature as possible to each of those movements. From there, lacking awareness or the ability to use and engage a certain muscle group at a certain time, I guess without kind of red light sensory tools of actually seeing muscles engaged and activated, you kind of have to say that everything does work. Some things just aren't quite balanced. If you don't have adequate range of motion, you might not quite get the stability of the shoulder joint that you may want, or the ideal position of thoracic extension when overhead. Rib cage might lift with that and be compromising on the mid to lower back. So there are range of motion limitations that will incur technique issues, which will also leak in force production and power output and things like that. Lifting too much weight too soon. So again, it comes back to what kind of line am I in terms of understanding the movements. Find yourself a great coach and they can, I guess, dangle the carrot in front of you to help you get that progressive overload for your specific level and how well your body's adapting to the stimulus and intention or desired intention from the workout. If you're kind of going in there just trying to test the PR every other day, it's not necessarily the best way for you to get strong, but it's also not the best way for you to stay safe and healthy, especially under certain movements which may be more compromising than others. Back squat being one of those, deadlift being one of those, heavy clean and jerks being one of those. Any type of heavy loaded barbell movement needs a really good understanding of technique first and foremost, and the safety of rep schemes and the loads and intensities used, depending on which part of the training cycle that you're in as well. Neglecting the warm-up or mobility work. Now that's going to be crucial. We've spoken about this so many times. We have a video on it specifically about how to warm up, and we liken it to the analogy of using a car. You're going onto the motorway, you enter the on-ramp at 60 kilometers, and you have this length of time where you're able to build to 100 kilometers before you merge with traffic, which is already going 100 kilometers an hour. If you were to just go onto the motorway at 60 kilometers an hour, you're going to get crashed into from behind. So you need to get your car up to speed. Same thing with the body. We need to do X amount of warm-up, blood flow activation, muscle-specific usage, specific movement usage, and then get our heart rate to a certain level, movement to a certain level before actually entering that workout at the desired intensity that we're trying to do as well. Not following a structured program is so crucial. Also, if you're doing something that's sporadic and all over the place, it can tend to, well, it's the hopper method really, where you roll the hopper and you pull out a ball. And today we're looking for randomization, of course, and it might be 50 thrusters in the workout, and then tomorrow's workout we roll the hopper and pull it out, there's 150 wall balls. The next day we roll the hopper, 30 heavy front squats. The next day we roll the hopper. And so just by variability, we're landing on the same component each and every time, because that's still a possibility. So there has to be a structured programming there in place. And for me, if you've watched my videos, I'm a stickler for structuring my programming day after day, week after week, knowing what we're going to get. Of course, it's randomized work in there, but it's not necessarily in the important parts where we still want to gain great adaptation for specific things, because to get good at any one thing, you have to do it constantly over and over and over again. It leads back to one of the most powerful sayings from Bruce Lee. I do not fear the man who does 10,000 kicks once. I fear the man who does one kick 10,000 times. And that's just the type of time it takes to get good at something. You know, back to the randomization and not being on a structured program or something like that. For me, it's almost as if you're trying to throw paint at a wall and hopefully you get a picture. Programming can be as artful as you like and as delicately designed on a micro detail of like, how does this one specific training piece within my 3 pieces of today look like, and then how does that look like on a meso view versus over the course of the week or maybe the month, and on a very broad and macro view of how does this actually fit within my 12-month timeline period and all integrate and connect into one. And that's when you kind of get that really beautiful picture of what am I actually trying to sculpt here. And what do I need to add the pieces to make that happen? Lack of consistency and patience. And there's this beautiful quote that I heard and I can't remember where, but I can't say that it's mine either. If you put a cake in the oven and you bake it for 40 minutes at 100 degrees Celsius, you get the perfect cake. By putting that same cake in the oven at twice the temperature at 200 degrees Celsius, does it cook the same perfect cake in 20 minutes? It doesn't. It comes out burnt. You can't actually eat that cake. It's now non-eatable. And I think that's just a great analogy, is you can't really rush the process. Yes, there is a fastest possible path, but there are so many factors that go into that. That is, what is your understanding and environment prior to you even starting this moment and position? What is the most specific work that is tailored according to you? Just by doing double of that is not necessarily going to make you cook your cake faster, so to speak. So it's just being very understanding and aware of things take time. Have an idea of how much time according to work put in, work put out, and then what you're prepared to do on that. But again, patience. Patience is a virtue. It's said for a reason. As cliche as it is, it stands the test of time. With that, I would say you would probably lead into overtraining and lack of recovery. So we use metrics of MRV and MED. MRV, max recoverable volume. You can only train as hard as you can recover to elicit the same response and output each and every day. Minimum effective dose. How little do I need to train to affect the positive adaptation and response in my body to get stronger, faster, fitter, or adaptations to certain movements and exposures? I think on the latter, we'll often see people train twice a day for years on end and be this type level of athlete, and then all of a sudden they've reduced their training volume to maybe 50-60% of that, and they don't see themselves getting better. But in essence, you can still get better. They actually are getting better. They're hitting PRs, some of their workout times as fast as they've ever been. And 1 year you may be recovered, but now you're not taking into the equation. Just because you're not putting in double the time in this equivalent amount of time what you used to, doesn't mean you can't still get better. Sorry about that, microphone ran out of battery, so we're back to the old faithful. So within the initial chat about the nutrition, just being very aware of the sport-specific nutrition that you do have. If you're a big, heavy powerlifter, you're taking in the amount of calories that you need to lift heavy. If you're a light gymnast and you need to keep body weight down, just understanding what goes into your body in order to make that happen. Probably less fats, more carbs around training, and just having at least a little bit of awareness, and you're not just going into the gym and undoing all your good work by heading through the takeaway drive-through on the way home. Even in the supermarket, just a really quick way to kind of figure out how to stay away from all the bad things. It's just go around the outside of the supermarket, follow that line, and then head to the checkout. And as long as you don't go down all the lanes in between, you'll kind of generally stay away from all the bad food as well. A poor mental approach can often be a lack or a common mistake in strength training. And man, I see it all the time. There's a mental block on even as far as down to how the plates are loaded on a barbell, when someone can't have the big blue plates, so they have to have 10-10 or 5 and 2-2-2-2-2, and you're loading up all these small weights because it's less of a mind fuck, for less of a better term. So there's a lot of that, a lot of visualization, a lot of mental prep, no negative self-talk when coming in to give lifts or give energy to a good lift. And just balancing ambition with realistic expectation or realistic progression. So when we want to get a PR, we also come in for the lowest hanging fruit first. So my jumps when I'm warming up might look like 70%, 80%, 87%, 95%, or 93%, 97%, 101%. So I'm looking for a 1 kilo PR versus going from my PR and a 10 kilo jump and missing it. So just having an understanding of just that natural linear progression and taking what's available to me in that time. Another misconception or another common mistake that's towards strength training or maximizing that is the auxiliary lifts, and we call it the accessory work. So often we look to go into the gym, we had our big meat and potatoes of getting our squats done, but then we're not eating the vegetables on the side thereafter, and we just think that that's going to be the only thing that's going to lead toward our progression. And by all means, yes, you've done the biggest thing on the table, you've kept the main thing, but it does need the supplementary movements and components to add value to that core piece, specifically if you're an advanced lifter and you need either one, more stress and adaptation to the movements or to the body to elicit strength adaptation. It's like cooking a roast lamb for 90 minutes in the oven and not putting the mint sauce or the gravy with it. Do the 1%ers that are with it. Do unilateral lower body work, do your lunges, do your step ups, do your hinge work, your posterior chain work, do the things that are going to supplement the lifts really, really well. Failing to track progress, super important. I think that this often separates, good training programs from others, is how do we know how far we've come if we don't track our progress at all and we're thinking of what ifs and maybes. And it just shows a little bit of care factor at the end of the day. If you really are, on the path to getting as good as you can, you will record and track your progress, and then you'll revisit that, and then you'll constantly look at how you can make that sustainable, substantial, and always progressively moving forward. Misunderstanding strength and hypertrophy, and I guess just archetypes of training principles. There's at times where there'll be a junction where you can cross over and you can get stronger by doing hypertrophy. You should also be looking to use hypertrophy in training programs at certain times of your periodization block. One, to increase awareness on a movement, reps and volume and tolerance to a movement, capacity, strength. We're forcing muscles to grow. They get more severely broken down just because of the nature of the movement and total volume moved across a set. Greater work capacity, strength endurance. We're looking at increasing the surface area of a muscle. It gets more creatine into the muscle, which means it's going to be easily readily available to be used in strength training. But the rep schemes are totally different. Just understanding what is what, in order to, I would say, in strength training, for example, we use the number 5x5 a lot. And why is 5x5 even used? Great question. 5 is generally around that number where you can have a load that is significant enough to force enough stresses on the muscle to create an adaptation, and you go into the flight or fight system, the sympathetic nervous system. And you're looking at one, recovering or growing from that. Your body freaks out and says, hey, that was really heavy. I've got to do something. I've either got to leave this and never do this again, and I'm okay. Or if you want me to face this adversity again, I've got to grow and adapt from the situation. So that's how getting stronger works. Anything kind of after, I would say 10 reps specifically, you don't have enough weight on the barbell or for whatever movement you're doing to elicit that same response, or that same musculature, recruitment, and motor patterns happening. So that's why 5x5, or specifically 5 reps, is the kind of magic number. anything after that, 10, 20, 30, that's just negligible at that point. In conclusion, summary of takeaways and the common mistakes. I think 1, getting a structured program, knowing what you're doing. Recovery and diet plays a role in it. Making sure you're getting your auxiliary work in, your successory work and supplementary exercises that are going to aid and facilitate that. Know what type of training program you're on and at what time of window you're trying to do something. Have a clear goal. Keep your self-talk positive. Visualize you getting you making successful lifts. Understanding or having a bit of awareness and realization for appropriate, realistic expectation of the progress. I think you can't go wrong. So if you fix, there's probably 10 good points here, and if you fix a number of those things, you'll be well on your journey to fixing some of those mistakes and getting your best lifts to come.